Hi there, and welcome back to our healthy recipe video series. We've designed this video series to help inspire you to cook healthy, delicious meals that will satisfy your whole family. It's National Nutrition Month, and this year the theme is celebrating a world of flavors. So we decided to bring one of the most popular American Chinese restaurant dishes, beef and broccoli, to our video series. I love the food at Chinese restaurants, but it can be high in sodium and added sugars, and sometimes it can be a little bit hard on your family budget too, especially if you have kids or teens to feed. So we found you a delicious, low-sodium beef and broccoli recipe that can be made in the crock pot. Prior to filming, we put the beef in the freezer for 30 minutes so it's partially frozen and will be a little bit easier to slice into thin pieces. We're going to slice these as thin as we possibly can. So notice that I'm cutting the meat across the grain. So when you look at a piece of meat, you'll notice that the strands follow a certain direction. If you look really closely at this one, the grains go this direction, right? And so when we're cutting across the grain, we're cutting across that direction, not in the same direction, in the opposite direction. And so what that does, you can kind of see that it causes the meat to be a little bit more tender and not quite so tight. All right, so in this measuring cup, we're going to combine 1/3 cup of oyster sauce, which is already in there. You can kind of see that. And to this, we're going to add 1/3 cup of cooking sherry. Toasted sesame oil, light soy sauce, a little bit of sugar, and some cornstarch. And we're going to whisk this until the sugar and the cornstarch are completely combined. And now that these are well combined, we're going to go ahead and add our sauce to our beef. You can see how thick that is, and that's because of the cornstarch. We're going to stir this to combine the sauce and the beef, and then we're going to put this in the fridge for 30 minutes to marinate the beef. So now we're going to deal with our aromatics, and this recipe calls for a little chunk of ginger and some garlic. And it also has you putting them in there whole instead of chopping them up for this recipe. So I'm going to show you how to peel the ginger, and then we're going to smash these garlic cloves and put them all together. So you can peel ginger with a spoon, either the flat edge of a spoon, kind of like this, or you can use a vegetable peeler. And my preference is to use a vegetable peeler because I feel like the spoon is kind of difficult to use. It's kind of difficult to get all the skin off. So we're just gonna peel this a little bit. And the reason some people use spoons is because they don't like the waste involved in using a vegetable peeler. But I think the waste is minimal for the lack of how difficult it is. It smells so good. I wish you could smell this through the screen. Ginger has a very bright, kind of almost citrusy smell that reminds me of pine sol, but in a less chemical way. And then we're just gonna cut off a big chunk of this. Just like that. And with these garlic cloves, I'm just gonna take the flat edge of my blade, just like this, lay it over that garlic clove and give it a very gentle bump with my hand. Don't smash it really hard because then you'll get just basically mashed garlic on your cutting board. And that just splits the garlic enough that it's easier to peel. And we're just gonna smash it just a little bit more so that it releases its flavor. See how it's kind of split open, but it's not like mashed into little pieces. Okay, so our beef is done marinating, so we're gonna go ahead and add it to the crock pot along with our aromatics. And this crock pot's kind of enormous, so I'm also gonna add just a little splash of water. And also to make sure that the sauce gets totally out of this bowl. Okay. And that extra water will just make sure that if any liquid evaporates out of the sauce, that it won't dry out the beef. And cover. And we're gonna cook this on low for 3.5 hours. Okay, so it's been about 3 hours, and we are going to go ahead and add the broccoli into the pot. All these little bite-sized pieces of broccoli deliciousness. Give it a stir to combine. And you'll notice there's quite a lot more broccoli in here than beef, and it's kind of how you get it when it's at a restaurant, but also it's also just increasing the amount of vegetable matter that you're getting in your diet, and I think that that's great. So even though it's a little more than half broccoli to beef, I think that's okay. I'm gonna add just a little bit of water to make sure that our broccoli doesn't get dry while it's cooking. And we'll put the lid back on and let it cook for a half hour. So now that we've got our broccoli cooking along with the beef, we're gonna get the rice started. I decided for this recipe, we're gonna go ahead and use brown rice because it has a slightly higher nutritional profile and delicious nutty flavor as compared to a lot of white rice types. So what I've done is I've taken a whole cup of dry rice and I've rinsed it in cold water ahead of time and then added it to my Instant Pot. And you can cook rice in a lot of different ways. I prefer using the Instant Pot because it makes it very easy, but if you don't have one, you can of course cook your rice on the stove or in the microwave. Or if you have a dedicated rice cooker, of course you can use that. And so to the cup of dry rice, I'm gonna go ahead and add 2 cups of water. Put the lid on. Hit the rice function, and we're gonna cook for about 15 minutes. Okay, so our broccoli is tender, but still a little bit crunchy. Everything's ready to go. But first, before I start plating this up, I'm gonna go ahead and dig that chunk of ginger out so that somebody doesn't get that in their bowl. And we've also got our rice ready. So to serve this, we're just gonna put a little bit of rice in the bowl and some of the beef and broccoli mix with some sauce. Now, doesn't that look fabulous?